also a welcome from our side. And today we will talk to you about the power of storytelling, specifically by sharing our personal story and raising awareness.
So here you can see the content of our presentation. We'll do a quick introduction of ourselves. We will talk about what makes a good story. We will also have a theoretical overview of storytelling and goals of storytelling, where we will share our personal experiences, and then we'll sum it up for you as well.
So my name is Enea and I'm from Switzerland. I'm 26 years old and I'm in my last semester of university. I'm also a board member of the Swiss Hemophilia Society, and I'm also part of the Area and Youth Committee of the EHC. I have severe hemophilia B and completed a successful ITI in 2017. And last year, my inhibitors returned, but I was able to eliminate them once again. And I also love going to concerts and festivals.
My name is Camilla. I'm originally from Sweden, moved to Switzerland in 1992. And a year later, in 1993, I met my Italian husband, Luca. Since 2023, I've been employed by the Swiss NMO. Before that, I was involved as a volunteer, especially doing summer camps organized by our NMO. For a while, when Enea wasn't doing well, I took a step back from everything related to hemophilia. Living with an inhibitor made us feel isolated, and I often felt that no one truly understood our situation. That changed in 2016 when we were invited by our NMO to attend the first inhibitor summit organized by the EHT in Bairdstown. It was actually a turning point for both Enea and me. For the first time, we felt seen and heard, and it renewed our desire to be part of the hemophilia community. I turned to our pediatrician when discovering out of the ordinary bruising on Enea's back. At this point, he was 6 months old. I thought they stemmed from his pajama button sleeping on his back. Instead of listening to my explanation, she instantly said to me, "He must have been hit very hard." I was in shock after being accused with child abuse and left her office without getting any answers. For me, this is a good story, as the audience attention is captured. Maybe it got you curious what's going to happen next, and you might even be able to relate to my experience. But what makes a good story? The answer to this depends upon whom you ask, of course. A good story consists of the following aspects if you look at the scientific research.
Firstly, the structure, and there are these four basic elements of stories. Firstly, situatedness. That means that stories are told in a specific context and also have to interpret it with that context in mind. Secondly, event sequencing. That means that it focuses on particular events that follow a clear time structure. Thirdly, world making or world disruption. That means that in the story, it introduces some sort of disruption in the world. And lastly, what it's like. That means it conveys what it's like to live through this world and the experiences that one has whilst undergoing this pressure that came from the disruption.
The second aspect is emotion. You might already have seen this graph here. This is how Gustav Freytag, who was a German novelist in the 19th century, described stories as he saw similarities between them. When we react to these stories, our brain does not follow the same structure. Our attention is changing throughout hearing the story. The social bonding hormone oxytocin, also called the love hormone, is getting released in our body when we are getting invested in a story. It was revealed by research that a change in oxytocin, my favorite word of the day, levels had a positive correlation with feelings for empathy. For people, it is hard to articulate why they like or don't like something when watching it, but our brain reveals what is engaging for us to watch by releasing oxytocin.
The third aspect is relatability and characters. There's a common stereotype that book readers lack strong social skills. However, research shows that especially readers of fiction can actually improve their empathy and their ability to understand the feelings of others. This is because fictional stories often portray characters' goals, motivations, and emotions in ways that closely resemble real-life social situations and stories. Psychologist Richard Garrick described a concept known as narrative engagement, which refers to how deeply readers can become emotionally and mentally immersed in a story.
The fourth aspect is specificity. In their book, Make It Stick, the Heath brothers looked at what makes an idea of a story stick in people's minds. They found 6 principles during their research. Simplicity. Try to keep your sentences as short and simple as possible so it's easier to remember. Unexpectedness. Surprise your audience and engage their curiosity by showing their knowledge gaps and then fill them in. Concreteness. Make abstract ideas concrete and use concrete images as our brains are wired to remember concrete information. Credibility. Using authority and/or let people test and verify the idea for themselves. For example, in the 1980 US elections, instead of talking about statistical data, Ronald Reagan asked the audience in the TV debate if they are better off today than 4 years ago. Emotions. Make the audience feel something and try to put a face to the problem, as research shows that people are more likely to make a donation to a single person than to an entire group. Tell stories to drive action and understanding of your listeners, as stories are powerful tools.
The last aspect is meaning. Green and Brooke, 2 researchers, explored in a study how transportation, which is a similar concept to narrative engagement, makes a story more persuasive. Transportation is the experience of becoming mentally and emotionally absorbed into a story. The results showed that the more someone was transported into a story, the more likely they are to change their beliefs. This effect occurs as transportation reduces counter-arguing and increases emotional engagement.
Here you can find a definition of narratives. Essentially, narratives are stories created and shared with others. In my opinion, there are 3 important parts to this definition. Firstly, when you tell a story, you construct an experience by choosing your words carefully. Secondly, narratives offer the possibility of making sense of past experiences, adding them to your memory and communicating them to other people. Thirdly, it provides means of explaining why you took certain actions. For example, I injected my son because he had bleed in his joint. Lastly, everyone is a storyteller, and narratives are a tool for cultural exchange, conveying life lessons, and expressing emotions.
Storytelling has a bad reputation in the world of science, and this view is hindering, in my opinion, when it comes to communicating about stories and narratives to a non-expert audience. This is because narratives become more important here, and research suggests that they are easier to comprehend and more engaging. Once people leave school, most people get their information from mass media content. This content relies on stories, anecdotes, and other narrative formats to compete for consumers' attention. So this shows how important narratives are to grab people's attention. Most people understand what it means to tell a story, and we have already discussed what it means to tell a good story and what it includes. Stories follow a particular structure that describe cause and effect relationships between events. Research shows that narratives have a privileged status in human cognition. They are often associated with increased recall, ease of comprehension, and shorter reading times. Furthermore, a direct comparison with an expository text showed that the narrative text was read twice as fast and recalled twice as well, regardless of familiarity with or interest in the topic. In a hospital setting, narratives are a key communication strategy in various areas, as all humans are storytellers. For example, when I share my story with my clinicians during my annual checkup, they can gain insight into where I might still be experiencing problems or what is important to me, based on the words I use to describe my experiences. When we form narratives, we try to make sense of those experiences and recreate them. Humans can recognize and process this familiar format of a narrative more easily. Narratives also help to focus on the patient and make the treatment more patient-centered. When our stories are heard and our concerns are being addressed, we also may offer additional information to optimize the treatment as we feel that we are being heard.
In one of the papers I read, I came across this quote, which I personally think rings true. Listening to patient narratives is the point of medicine. The value of narratives has generally increased over the past several years. A good example is shared decision-making regarding the individualization of treatment by telling your story to your doctor. Furthermore, social scientists have started to examine the interactions between doctors and patients. There is now also a greater focus on communication skills and interviewing training during medical education. Patient narratives are also used to demonstrate collaborative interactions between doctors and patients, as well as the opportunities for learning from patients. Another review showed that allowing people to share stories about their lives and experiences with chronic diseases was therapeutic and facilitated coping. This can be achieved by providing a space where people can actively engage with and support each other. Sharing one's story can enhance one's sense of personal control over one's illness. Such spaces can be defined by factors such as age, gender, disease, and whether or not healthcare professionals are present. If healthcare professionals are involved in this discussion, they can facilitate them, which is also a learning opportunity to better understand patients and support them in new ways when they return to their clinics. We see this at our events when we offer workshops that are led by healthcare professionals and the positive outcomes that come out of these interactions between patients and healthcare professionals. Additionally, healthcare professionals can contribute to shared information as needed and can intervene and share information if someone is unsure.
When telling your story, you can have different goals in mind in what you want to do by telling your own personal story. These 8 goals are the goals that we thought about when discussing the topic. Awareness, educate, getting people emotionally involved, inspire people and also yourself, motivate, hearing and sharing ideas, support, and finding a community.
When Aeneas started kindergarten and later school, it was a big moment of letting go for me. How do you help other children understand how serious his condition was without making him feel scary or isolating? One way was to involve them directly in a way that felt positive and even a little bit cool. We had Aeneas demonstrate an injection on me, just to tell you it went so la la, but the needle was in there. He explained that he has to do this several times a week and that sometimes he needs to be extra careful when playing. The kids were fascinated. They were impressed by his doctor skills. And of course, we finished it all off with some tasty cake for the whole class, making it feel like a special occasion rather than something to be afraid of. It was also a good opportunity to let the teachers know that I was always available if there was a problem or if there were any questions from their side.
When I first started high school, I often had to use a wheelchair to get to class. Naturally, this raised some questions from other students, especially when they saw me walking one week and in a wheelchair the next. I explained to them that I have hemophilia when they asked me, and once they knew that, they were happy to know the reason why it was like that and also why I never participated in our sports events. Another example comes from secondary school, where the older students took out for me and were kind of my bodyguards, especially during winter when snowball fights were common. They knew that I couldn't risk getting hit or hurt from what they've heard about hemophilia, and they made an effort to protect me. I have also been able to draw on my personal experiences in some of the papers I have written at school. This was especially useful in high school, where we had to write a final paper that was similar to a bachelor's thesis. For that, I used my successful ITI as a topic to share what that therapy involved and the new perks I gained from it. It was a way for me to educate people about hemophilia, as there are still misconceptions in society, such as the idea that you can bleed to death from a cut, and they don't know about muscle or joint bleeds. During the presentation of my paper, I could also see that people were interested in hearing about experiences that they might not encounter that often, as my room was full. Another area where I have been able to use my personal story to make an impact is when I have given presentations to lab students during their training, talking about bleeding disorders and educating them also about the fact that women can have bleeding disorders.
Because of Enea's rare condition with the inhibitor and his allergy to factor 9, it became important to me to share his story, to raise awareness and help others truly understand what life with a bleeding disorder looks like. I wanted to reach people in the pharmaceutical world, to move them emotionally, to inspire them to see beyond the clinical data and connect with the human side, to see Enea not just a diagnosis. It was also incredibly rewarding for me personally. I had a chance to hear directly from the experts, their ideas, their visions, straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. It became a real exchange, not just advocacy.
In my opinion, it is particularly important for smaller patient communities to reach a wider audience. And one of the important factors in achieving this is getting them emotionally involved. This can be achieved by highlighting personal stories and shaping a narrative out of the community's different experiences. With this emotional involvement, people are more willing to get involved as they have an emotional stake in the community. This is why sharing experiences is so important in our messaging. I was given the opportunity to share my story at an event attended by people from pharma as well as doctors and nurses. The aim was to inspire them to continue to do an amazing job, with a particular focus on my newly found freedom. This is another important aspect of storytelling. You can focus on what you want to tell about. Seeing the participants' reactions also inspired me, as I could tell that they were interested. I also gained the confidence to know that I can stand in front of a crowd, share my story, and get people emotionally involved, inspired, and motivated to do a good job.
For me, attending congresses and events is always inspiring. I love hearing about what others have achieved and how they got there. Not long ago, I listened to a presentation by one of our members who is now 77 years old. His story was incredibly moving. It always chokes me up a little bit. So he turned some of life's hardest challenges into something meaningful. As a young man, he had no access to proper care. Later, he was diagnosed with HIV. And because of that, he and his wife couldn't have any children. He also lost his job due to the stigma around his HIV diagnosis, excuse me. Always happens to this part. But instead of giving into despair, he took a different path. He started his own company and chose to live with purpose, sharing his story to inspire others. He actually has written 3 books about this. Stories like this remind me how important it is to stay open-minded and learn from the experience of others. There's always something valuable to take home. Even the smallest ideas can make a big difference. That's why being part of both the national and international community means a lot to me. It's not just about sharing knowledge, it's about connection, growth, and finding new ways to support the people we care for. Staying motivated, both for myself and for Enea, has been a journey in itself, actually. It's about constantly exploring new approaches, staying curious, and adapting as we go. We've tried everything from horse therapy to finding creative ways for Enea to be fully involved in life, even when he's in a wheelchair. And sometimes those challenges come with unexpected perks, like front row seats at a concert because of the wheelchair. The key is to focus on what's possible, not on what's missing.
Hearing others share their stories and learning about what they have achieved has motivated me to not let my hemophilia dictate my life, but to build my life around it. For example, instead of not participating in the annual race in my hometown, my high school class decided that I should participate too, with friends pushing me in my wheelchair. As mentioned, hearing similar stories about how others adapted to their circumstances can also motivate you to find new ways to enjoy your hobbies. I nearly missed out on a festival, but then I thought I really want to go because of the bands that are there. So I adapted by searching for a wheelchair that I could rent for the duration of the festival. I have to admit I also profited from the situation as I gained some guitar picks and drumsticks because people felt sorry for the wheelchair guy. To clarify, I had to rent one as I gave my old wheelchair back after my successful ITI. Another important aspect of storytelling is sharing ideas, as it is likely that not everyone has thought about them. Sharing tips and tricks on how to improve your everyday life helps you to gain a wide range of things to try out and see if they work for you, as not everything will be suitable for everyone. For example, I've often heard people at events say that it's important to take care of your veins because you have to inject into them your entire life. Another tip I received was to drink and eat enough before an injection, which makes totally sense, but I didn't really think about that before. And you can share tips like this in a story, as this allows you to provide a comparison for the listener, showing how the experience has improved with the added tips.
Even a small idea can make a big change. I remember when a friend suggested I try support socks for Enea. At first, all I could think of was my mother wearing support socks for her varicose veins, but in reality, they turned out to be one of the best tools we have when Enea's ankles are bothering him. In our daily lives, it can feel overwhelming trying to squeeze everything into the few hours we're awake. We all know we should look after our health and well-being, but when you're working and caring for someone with serious health challenges, that's often easier said than done. It is also important to look after yourself, as one's own health is equally important. So it's crucial that you have something where you can turn off your brain and just relax and have some me time. The thing that helped me was when we got a dog. It might sound simple, but those daily walks became a lifeline. They keep me physically active, yes, but more importantly, they give me space to breathe, reflect, and focus on myself. And the great thing about the dog, except for that they're very cute, they don't care if it's raining or cold. They need their walk, no matter what. It's a non-negotiable part of my day, and it's one of the key things that helps me stay grounded and sane.
Almost all of the goals that can be achieved through storytelling are also linked to providing and receiving support through the sharing of stories. It is a way of comparing different experiences and identifying similarities. These comparisons can be made on a variety of levels, whether personal, regional, or national. Sharing stories and experiences can also be an intimate process as you might not share them with just anyone. So it's also a way of showing that you trust the listeners. This connects people, enabling you to build a community that will provide support not only for you yourself, but also for others. If you need help or advice, you can go to the group, but you can also give back to the group if someone else needs your advice.
Working for the Swiss Hemophilia Society, we offer support to our members, providing them with news and personal stories at events or through our member magazine. I love my job. They know that I have been through a lot of the problems they might have, and we can connect on a personal level as well.
Finding a community and a support system go hand in hand, as our strength lies in being a community and sharing our collective story on a larger scale. The effect of this is much greater than if only one person shared their personal story. By telling our collective story, we raise awareness of the issues we face and can get support to solve them. We get the support from people who are affected by all these various goals that storytelling can achieve. Some examples are policymakers, researchers, and healthcare providers. They will be more engaged with our advocacy efforts when they can connect to a shared story that reflects a need for change.
When Enea was diagnosed, talking to his hematologist was important. It helped me understand his treatment options and what to expect. But honestly, what made an even bigger difference for me was finding a community. Back then, I didn't even have internet access, so online support wasn't an option. Joining the Swiss Hemophilia Society and meeting other families was a turning point. Where am I? Here. Seeing all the children managing their condition gave me hope and perspective. It was at one of those family events that I met Andrea, also a Swede, and we instantly connected. She's become my blood sister, and we've been through so much together. This also chokes me up. We've spent countless hours in person with each other and on the phone. talking through challenges, sharing strategies, and supporting each other through both the hard days and the joyful ones. We laugh a lot, sometimes cry, like me now, and always lift each other up. Our friendship is on a different level than any other friendships that I have. I'm grateful for the community and everybody I met throughout the years because of Ophelia.
Now we are nearing the end of our presentation. Throughout the presentation, we saw that storytelling can be a powerful tool to make people emotionally involved. And stories or narratives are our own constructions of experiences with the words we choose to use, so we can shape the narratives ourselves. And lastly, by telling our story, we both met a lot of interesting people and made new lifelong friendships.
So we also want to give you a take-home message. If you tell your personal story, you will realize you're not alone. Thank you.